Hello, happy people. Welcome to the Profitable Happiness Podcast. Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Pelè with the Profitable Happiness Podcast. And it is my pleasure to introduce to you today someone who believes so strongly that if you find your voice, you will change your life. Someone who's not only a friend and a former client of mine, but someone I truly respect in the world of psychology, Dr. Doreen Downing. How are you doing today?
Oh, it's great. It's California time, 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm so happy to be here with you, Dr. Pelè.
Awesome. Hey, even though it's a little bit later, I'm still on my first cup of coffee. So, we got some work to do here. Dr. Doreen, first of all, I want to say that, you have a unique perspective on what a lot of people already know about public speaking. And I'd love for us to get there, but maybe you could help us define the problem with respect to showing up and speaking and the things that you address. Tell us about the problem you solve in the world.
Yes, well, the problem is actually people getting nervous about speaking in public, about showing up, about raising their hand, about stepping up at a meeting. Any place where they step into a spotlight, it's like all eyes are on them. And actually, I think it's not only just in terms of a group, but it's also in terms of one person, so that I think you might say that public speaking is any time that you're speaking, even with one person. So that's it's not really a new concept, but I think I want to emphasize that people can get nervous about speaking in any kind of situation.
Wow. It's interesting. When I think of being nervous and speaking, in my head, I think of people saying that public speaking is the number one thing people fear, even worse than death. It's like, how did we get to that?
I know.
How is it that this fear is so overwhelming for us?
Well, that was a great question you just asked, I think. And how did we as a society get to the point where individuals fear standing up in front of others? And I think if we actually go back way, way back to animal kingdom, that's pretty much probably that part of our brain is still operating. They call it the lizard brain or the hind brain, the amygdala. Somewhere that gets fired because there's some sense of a threat. Maybe it's the eyes, animals going out trying to eat each other. There's prey. So I think that, I know that's kind of a simplistic answer, but I think that when I work with people, they talk about not being able to convince themselves to calm down. So I think, and there's neuroscience about this, that other parts of our brain are wired to go alert, alert, alarm, alarm. So that's anxiety when you're in front of people.
Wow. I have heard you give opinions about things like Toastmasters and methods of practicing and methods of calming yourself. If you were to sort of boil down how this problem is perceived in the world, and then maybe how you have perceived it differently from your psychological lens, that would be a great way for me to understand it even better.
Yeah. Well, there's the traditional approach to overcoming the fear. And I think something like Toastmasters is really good. I'm not saying that it's not a good organization. It's a great organization. I was part of it for 7 years, actually, learned how to do speech writing and delivering. However, it was about performance. And I believe that the fear of speaking is really about being who you are, who you're meant to be. And that's why I call my program Find Your Voice, Change Your Life, because once you tap into and know and connect with the essence, yes, the essence of who you are, then you have more freedom for expressing yourself out in the world. And so I think that traditional approaches look at, well, let's help you make a better speech, or, help you have vocal variety and to have a beginning, a middle, and an end that makes sense. Punch, have humor, all those kinds of techniques for speaking, which are great. However, I think where fear lies for many of us is a deeper issue. And that's what I bring to it as a psychologist, is saying, how come? What happened to you? Where in your life did something go wrong? I don't want to say wrong, but you know how development, we grow, we put our roots in, and I can talk more about early childhood development, but I think I bring that perspective as well as the essence of who we are, which is so important.
You know, when you say the word essence, you've got me going, okay, I need to sit back and just listen here. Like, but there's no couch. you know, I really want to learn more about that. But before we get into the details of why and how, these things work, tell us how you arrived on this journey. Did something happen in your life to put you on this career path? What was your Damascus moment? What was your defining process that brought you here?
Oh, there are aspects to that story. There's a deep answer when I went on that journey, but I think I'll start with being a psychologist, a PhD psychologist from Berkeley, of all places, having a successful private practice and being asked to speak at a conference. And I said, oh, no, not me. I'm afraid of public speaking. Because actually, as a psychologist in my office, I just have one person. And that's easy. I interact well. I love to engage with people. I'm okay one-to-one, but
Yeah.
put me in even 5 or 6 people, I would have nervousness. So when this conference organizer heard that I was afraid to do the speech in front of the psychology conference, she said, "But doctor, isn't fear your business?"
Ooh.
And I can say that was a turning point. So I think that's what happens for people, is there's a moment where they go, like, ooh, that's true. And somebody just found out I've been hiding it. I was hiding it as a PhD psychologist. I think that's kind of funny.
Well,
People talk about imposter syndrome. I mean, it was really going on for me.
wow. What a powerful story, especially how that person asked you, is it fear your business? Aren't you the one who helps us relax? And I want to say one thing, because I do know you, and I think that you have a really calming effect on people. Like, if people are going like this, when they meet you, after a while they go, okay, let's have a conversation. So you help to bring those down. But on that note, let's talk about the people whom you serve today, and let's get into how you serve them. Give us a sense of the average individual that usually you end up helping, and then let's talk about how you help them. I know that you have a book coming out again that we should talk about. We'll get into that. But let's talk about the people who may be listening, to get into their mindset so we know who exactly you serve.
Yes. Well, it first seems to be people who are in a business situation where they're meeting and they have to give a report on a project, or it's somebody who's just been hired to be at a higher level in a company, let's say not just a manager, but now has been advanced to a VP. And actually, one of my clients was a VP of sales, of all things. And he was so terrified that he'd spend 4 hours before the Friday lunch meeting writing down what his report was going to be. And even the night before, he was terrified. So isn't that something, being advanced in his career, yet carrying such a deep anxiety. And I mean deep, meaning he had to really force himself to go to that meeting and sweat through it and feel bad afterwards. So I think that whole process of, we call it anticipatory anxiety, the anxiousness before a meeting. Then the meeting itself, he would read his 4 pages. He wouldn't just be there and speak about his business. And then afterwards, feeling like you really didn't live up to what your image should have been. And so the self-critic that comes in afterwards. So I would say those people get afraid mostly before, or some say, I don't get too afraid. It's just like when I start, then I fall apart. Or it's afterwards and they get really, they beat themselves up or they get down on themselves for having been so, they think such a failure. And that's, that whole inner mindset that people carry about always judging themselves. And I think that what they do, and we call it projection in psychology, they project onto those who are listening to them whatever they feel about themselves, whatever doubts they have, whatever insecurities. I'm too boring, nobody likes me, I won't make this sale. So I work with a range of people. I also work with artists and people who've written a book, published a book, and have to go out and speak about it. It was okay while they could write, but to go out and talk to people about it is frightening for them. So I would say that's another example of the wide range of people. I mean, everybody has some sort of fear, I think, anxiety, a little bit, if not a lot, about speaking in front of others, expressing who they are. For our group, starting a business, showing up and talking about it on video of all things.
Yeah, which is the new speaking in many ways for people throughout all this COVID. I mean, where else are you gonna be seen? It's all on video. One of the things I really appreciate about your specific methodology is that you seek to go deeper. While people might say, okay, well, I'm afraid, you claim and you pursue the idea that there is a deeper root to the challenges of speaking. Tell us about that psychology and that methodology that you want to go deeper to find out, as you said, where did this happen to you? I know you have a whole body of knowledge around that. Could you share some of the how behind that for us?
Yes, I would start with my own what happened, because when that person said, doctor, isn't fear your business, I went on my own inner journey. Yes, I did do Toastmasters, but Toastmasters didn't unravel where the anxiety was lodged in a deeper place inside of me. It was lodged way back when I was 5 years old.
Wow.
My mother was in the hospital, in and out of the hospital for depression. And my grandmother, who we lived with, would always say, shh, you better be quiet. Your mom's going to go back into the hospital. And that scares a little girl. Her mommy's going to leave if I make any noise. So I think there's a root. I have other roots, but that one I remember specifically as a cause for me to go, just shut up, shut down, and be quiet. So something like that, I think I could talk about. I'll give two more examples. There's a person that I've worked with who did feel like he was an imposter when he spoke up in front of groups. And we uncovered that when his father died, his uncle came and said, you're now the man of the family. And he realized, oh my gosh, I've been an imposter since 12 years old.
Wow.
Trying to be a big man, right? And I have another story too of somebody who felt like when she was in front of the group, her analogy was, I feel like I'm going to be pounced on. So I took that, I listened to people for clues. Yesterday I posted about the puzzle, about it's a mystery to me. And what we uncovered of all things is when she was it was about 5 years old too, when she was walking to school, first grade, she had to go by this huge, big dog that was in the neighborhood. And one day it did pounce on her. It was terrifying for her as a little girl. I know that doesn't sound like, well, come on, get over it. But she pinned down that sense in her body. Again, the animal that we talked about earlier.
And again, as you say, the essence of these things is from those deeper roots, and you work from the essence, not from the surface stuff that we all think is the real problem. What does success look like? Someone comes to you, they read your book. You actually have a program, the secrets, the 7 secrets of fearless speaking. They go through your process. What does success look like when you are done with working with someone for them?
Yeah, well, I'll start with what you just used, the word essence. And yes, I go deep, meaning I uncover the root. So then we have strategies, so many in psychology that I could talk about, but just basically there are strategies to deal with, heal, and overcome those old hurts, wounds that we have. But Dr. Pelè, I go even deeper to the essence, the being of who we are, the spirit, the unique potential that's within each one of us. And that's why I love psychology. I go for the brilliance inside of people and help them find their vibrant self, their passion. And that to me feels like it's deeper than any of the wounds. And we just have to tap into it. They've been protecting their precious jewel for all these years because they couldn't shine early on.
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't because it wasn't safe, or they were traumatized, or they had an older sibling who was more verbal. There's all sorts of reasons that people grow up and hide their precious self, their powerful self, their natural self. So that's when I talk about essential speaking, that's what I mean. It's not about just what's necessary and what's essential. It's the essence of who you are. And when you find that, you have freedom. So in my own journey, I discovered 7 secrets. I call them secrets because it's so not conventional.
Yeah, I was going to say, you talk about things like healing. People don't connect healing and wounds to public speaking a lot. They just think, okay, I'm just nervous, and they leave it there. But you really go deep. But tell us about what those 7 secrets are, if you can.
Well, I'll start with the first one, and maybe we won't make it through all 7, and people could go to DoreenSevenSteps.com to find out more.
If it's a secret, can I really survive listening to all 7 here?
Right. Yeah, I think the first and second one are the most important, and the last one. The first one is to be still, to learn how to find the inner quiet, still place inside. And you talk about that my process goes deep. It's, yes, the breath, and inside of the core, the gut, the middle of our bodies, right there in the solar plexus, actually where we shine, right? Solar, sun. But it's also a quiet, still point there. And if we can find the way to land there, it's like a kite, that doesn't have a string. If the kite's just flapping around, it's like, if we are grounded in this still, quiet essence of who we are, we speak from an inner place, not from our heads. And there's more of a resonance, kind of like a bell. There's a vibration that then reaches people and to help you get your message across. So I think that stillness is so important to have, because when it's one of the biggest fears is going blank. So I say, well, if you're comfortable taking a pause, going blank is not going to be so scary anymore. And you could be spontaneous in the moment. So if you did drop your notes, or you did forget where you were in your script, you could say, where was I? You could be more, I said dancing in the moment earlier with you. You're more able to be off the cuff, you might say, if you can find the comfort in being in your body, still, quiet, grounded. Right? That's the very first secret. And there's so many trainings, there's apps, there's relaxation exercises, because what we're doing, it's stress. So people need a stress reduction exercise. And I don't, there's so many options. So we need to customize what the person might do, but it needs to be practiced. It's an inner muscle that needs to be developed inside of people, is their strength. And to find that strength, I think, begins with stillness.
Wow. And you do have an offer to download these secrets on your website, so we'll make sure to leave that in the show notes below. Going forward, could you share a little bit more about your entrepreneurial journey? We talked about earlier how, in fact, I wonder if there's a connection. Finding your essence so that you can present yourself, and speak. I wonder what connection that is in finding your, what I call, profitable happiness, and to be able to go out into the world and bring what makes you happy into the space of what makes you profitable. What's your viewpoint on that topic?
Oh, you just verbalized it so well.
Oh, I did.
Yes, 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 yes. I think, yes, I all I can say is yes to you. That is wonderful. The way that you just said, profitable happiness is finding the essence of who you are and being happy about, like I am, happy about being here, telling people about this process that I've discovered and the possibility for them, because people are just so wrapped up and contained. And I want to help people free their spirit, not necessarily help them be better speakers, but I tell you, if you can find your voice inside, which is the essence of who you are, your business will flourish because you are aligned and you are happy. Profitable happiness. Yes.
Wow. No, that's so cool. I know for me, in my journey, we've talked about this. I've always been afraid to bring my music, which is my happiness, to the front of who I am, with the world in terms of business and so on. But now I force myself. I leave the guitar right there. And I've found a way to just sort of bring it. But of course, it's through content marketing. You can do some things that are not necessarily about your business. And some of those things can be who you truly are. What advice do you have for people about getting on the journey to, fearless speaking, fearless entrepreneurship? What general tips do you have that people maybe need to do to get into that mindset?
Well, I think it goes along with what I just said around stillness, is being quiet with yourself. And one of the other secrets, I won't go into it, but I'll just refer to it, which is listening, learning how to listen to your audience, learning how to listen to yourself, in this case around what is it, asking those questions of yourself to listen to the deeper essence. You have to at least believe that he or she, they are inside of you. Mm-hmm. And so taking time to write out the journal and ask yourself the inquiry. We carry so much of a judge, and you got to push yourself to succeed. No, stop judging, stop pushing, stop, get still, and listen to yourself, listen to your heart, listen to your soul.
Wow. I'm all ears at this point. What are you excited about next? Do you have any projects coming up, something you want to share? And how can people best reach you so they can get some of those 7 secrets, as well as any other new projects that you might have coming up?
My new project, and it just launched yesterday, actually, is the Find Your Voice, Change Your Life podcast. I've done 16 episodes, and I interview people about their own, like what I've talked to you today about. I had a problem about speaking up in public. I went on a journey. I found my voice, and now I get to be in what you call profitable happiness. Awesome. And I get to share. So I invite people to come and tell their story, just like I've done with you today, the sequence of feeling and maybe understanding what happened, that they silenced themselves, how they woke up, how they awakened their found their voice, and now what they can do. So if anybody's listening and has a story, make sure and find me. I think the best way, well, there's the signing up to get the secrets, the 7 steps, Doreen7steps.com. But I just want to make myself available to people at DoreenEssentialSpeaking.com. That's my email. That seems like an easy and quick way to say, hey, I heard you on Dr. Pelé's. Let's talk. Mm-hmm. And that's Doreen, D-O-R.
So Doreen7steps.com is one. And then the second one is Doreen at essentialspeaking.com.
That's true.
Okay. That's awesome. So Doreen, tell us, I think I was going to ask you about, you said that you were going to put out a book, or you're going to put out your book that you had out before in a new version, but we haven't talked about it. Can you share, or are you at liberty to share about your book?
Oh, yes. In fact, the publisher who published my first book is no longer in existence. So I started my own publishing company.
Oh, there you go.
So, yes, I have the right to say whatever I want. Yes, my first book came out, and it was Essential Speaking, the 7-step guide to finding your real voice. So all the 7 secrets, 7 steps are in that. And since then, I've discovered that what represents more of my work is finding your voice. It's yes, essential speaking is what I want to help people get to, but they have to go on a journey to find their voice. So this new edition is called Find Your Voice, Change Your Life, 7 Secrets to Essential Speaking. So it's pretty similar, just a different slant, and it'll come out by the end of the summer if the publisher is willing to work hard.
Yeah, if the new publisher, you.
Yes.
No, that's just awesome. Dr. Doreen, you are always a pleasure to speak with and to learn from, and a calming effect on me. You know how I am. I get a little bit hyper, but you always bring me down a little bit. I feel very good learning from you. And I just want anyone listening to this to recognize the important shift here. We're not just talking about speaking, we're talking about going deeper than speaking, because it's when you solve those root issues that all the benefits come out in terms of the speaking and your business and your career and so on. Thank you so much for sharing your perspective on the Profitable Happiness Podcast.
Yes, and I would say that what you just said, it's like the roots and resources are within us. Roots and resources, huh?
There you go. I like that. Roots and resources. That's 2 R's.
Yes.
I love that. I love the whole 2 R's, 3 R's, all that stuff. Thanks so much, Dr. Doreen, and have a wonderful day in California.
Thank you, too.
All right.
Thanks for tuning in to the Profitable Happiness Podcast. For more episodes, visit drpelè.com. And remember, get happy first and success will follow.